Here we are. I'm about to ruin your afternoon with another little talk. But it was a part of my life that, well, I enjoyed all of my life, really. It just seems like it was an adventure. We went to Florida. Well, we took the year's vacation that I promised my wife, but nothing unusual happened that doesn't happen to everybody. We enjoyed some beautiful country. Now, I know you all thinking about mountains and pine trees and that. Well, that's beautiful. But have you ever been to Yellowstone Park? Now, you know southern Yellowstone Park has got a geyser in there where every once in a while water will shoot 100 or so feet in the air. And it's been doing that for years. And it's been a big attraction for Yellowstone Park. But nobody's ever said anything but the north end of Yellowstone Park. Now, the north end of Yellowstone Park is beautiful. And by beautiful, I mean it's got a canyon up there that, while not as big as the Grand Canyon, it's big. And there's a big, beautiful waterfall, and with all the beauty of the country and pine trees and stuff around it. And it's something that's really worth seeing, just like the Grand Canyon's worth seeing. Now, well, now I'll go on. We ended up in the Funiac Springs. That, of course, you know, that was Millie's, or my wife's, where their parents lived and where my wife was raised, out in the country there in the Funiac Springs. Well, I got back on good old Eglin Air Force Base, and that Air Force Base was really an improvement command or something, where they did a lot of research work. And it was a real good place to work. That's where I accidentally destroyed a test airplane, you know, like a Piper Cub, that size. I think I've already told you about the Boeing missile.
Yeah, you already told us about that.
And we shot it down when we were supposed to miss it by 10 feet. We were supposed to do that, but I was the one that adjusted how far to miss it. Well, I shouldn't brag. Hey, I should have said nothing about that. I didn't want them to know. Well, anyway, they didn't find a piece that's very big left of that airplane. But anyway, that's just one thing that happened there. Oh, and also when there, I think I've already told you about, they said it's a machine gun. I told you about that.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of fun on that too. I had to test it for accuracy and how long it would last and so forth. And if you want to know, of course, what it looks like, just go to a movie that they got airplanes flying with the, you know, big door open with the guy standing there with a machine gun shooting at the enemy. Well, that's what I checked out. But getting back to the main topic now, I wanted to talk about 16 acres that I bought. Now, the Funiac was just a small town, and I was able to get 16 acres of virgin territory. Nobody's been in there. It's just trees and vines and rattlesnakes. No, yeah, big rattlesnakes. I'll tell you, we was going for a walk and I never saw a rattlesnake that big before. talk about somebody getting away from that. But that was back on the back end, and I decided I was going to have it made into lots. You know, you have to hire a man to do it that is licensed to do land measurements and making boundaries and stuff. They have to be certified and know what they're doing. So I had it all set up in acre lots. Now an acre is a pretty good, nice sized lot. So I was thinking that I'd build my house on one end, because on the end closest to the highway, I was only about about a half a mile from the highway, and then the highway going back west was the Funiac Springs. That is the Funiac Springs, that's how you pronounce it. So I had a nice place where the land kind of came down into another level part of the land. And it was a beautiful place for a house, because it's only about a quarter of a mile, about a half a mile total, because I had to go over to the road and then down. So altogether about a half a mile. So I was only about a mile from the Funiac, downtown Funiac, right down there in the shopping center. And I was just lucky enough. Did I ever explain why pine trees is a good tree to build a tree house in? Okay. I once worked for a rich person that he had this big oak tree, and I'll tell you, it was that big around, at least, and a big thing. And it was out in his front yard, or out by the road of his front yard, about 100 feet from the house. And a hurricane went through, and boy, just that thing tore up, there was roots all over. But then, another time I'd rented a house. This was close to my land. I rented a house when we first got there. And it was built by one smart cookie, you bet. He knew how to build a hurricane-proof house. And by that I mean reinforced steel with steel rod floors, cement blocks with reinforcing rods in the cement-filled blocks, with, of course, the roof bolted to all that. Well, I saw all this. I saw how that house was built. So when a hurricane came through there, not far after we'd got in there, and my goodness, it was heading right between the main part of the house, or the city there, the Funiac, and our house. And we was almost in the direct path, but a little toward the edge of the most damage. But still, I figured that house would go through it, and it did. Nothing was destroyed on it. But the thing I wanted to tell you about, so you'd understand how I built my house, the tree house, was that when that hurricane was going on, I had just outside of our back door 2 big pine trees. And these pine trees was that big around, and that's got a good root system. And I think that must be how the roots are. They must go down in and farther, like oak trees. The roots more or less just a little below the surface and goes out. Well, that's all I could figure out. I'm not a tree expert.
Right.
But So, with that in mind, my tree house, I had 6 pine trees that was this big around. That's pretty. Oh, us telling you about in that house during the hurricane, I had 2 pine trees that was about this big around. And I happened to look out there, and they was both laying flat on the ground. And after it was all over, I looked out there, and they're still flat. And then a little later, I looked out there, and those suckers, I mean, those trees was straight up, both of them. Again, no damage done. I could see no. Now, I don't know how the tree mechanically was able to do that, but I saw it, and I'm not a drinking man. I don't drink. I wasn't imagining it. I knew what I was looking at. Well, that's enough for tree lessons. All this was about, these pine trees that I found was at least this big around, and 8 feet, and then another 4 feet was 2 more, and another, well, it might have been 6 or 8 feet. Another 4 feet, there's 2 more. So I got some 2x12s and bolted them to the tree. Oh, about on one end is on the kind of a side of a hill, and that hill went down so that the back end was about 8 feet off the ground. And so I built me, boxed that in, and, you know, Tubertones, how they build things. And I screened in 4 feet, standing up, you know. Well, it's about 3 feet off where a normal counter is. From the counter in our little kitchen, I had about 6 inches up, and then I had a big screened in, about 4 by 10-foot windows all the way around the inside. But I also built in shutters, 1 by 8 wood boards. I made shutters out of them that could be opened and closed. So when a storm came, we'd completely close them. And about a little later, after I'd got it built and we'd moved in, and I was busy working on a bigger house, a big house, when a hurricane came through. Now this hurricane hit the Funiac directly. Well, it didn't do a lot of damage to a lot of the town buildings because they was built. You know, people built good because they knew about hurricanes and that.
Right.
But right across the highway, about a block, was a big 2-block square that was full of campers and small mobile homes for people lived.
Right.
Somebody had that land, so they made a mobile home park out of it. You'll find a lot of mobile home parks in Florida and in the South. And the fact is, I lived in one. I bought me a mobile home once. But getting back to the hurricane that hit that, it completely demolished everything in that block. And then it went on the other side of it, it went up. And the church I went to, I've told you before, I'm a Mormon.
Right.
Don't go shooting at me. You know, that's the history of the Mormon people. They was chased out of Missouri, and the reason they did it, because when they opened up Missouri in the old colonial days, that land was made into a lot of farms and stuff, and the Mormons got a lot of it. There's other lands around there with the regular people. I mean, not saying they're any different than us. We didn't have horns or nothing. And so the people was jealous though because of the Mormons. They did a good job. They profited. They made money and lived good. And a lot of these old farmers, I guess, they were so lazy. All they wanted to do is sit around drinking their corn liquor. Well, that's the only way that I could figure. But they was jealous, and they started this campaign of shooting all the family's husbands. And so naturally, the Morgans packed up and left. And my family tree goes back to that time. But that's another story, and I'll get to that later when I get talking more about the family.
Right.
But anyway, getting back to this 16 acres, so we had our little tree house, and it was really comfy. The steps going in it on the short side where the ground was closest, I built a porch the width of the tree house on out about 8 feet for a nice outdoor porch. You could go out there and have your chairs and drink whatever they drank. I guess water. That's what we drank. Coffee maybe in once in a while. Well, so anyway, that's where we went through a hurricane, and just no damage or anything. We lived through it. And of course, by then I had my house up. But my younger brother, my milking buddy, you know, back on the farm,
right.
Him milked all those cows. I let him live there. He came in from one of his big jobs, and where he worked for Brown and Root, and stayed with us for a while, and I let them live there. And we'd almost got it built. Yeah, we just almost built. I'd built that just like I knew a hurricane-proof had to be built, like I was telling you. Only my roof was different. I had a 36-volume set of building, you know, that a person would have to go through to be a builder or an architect or whatever you want to call them. And there was designs that you could build roofs that would withstand big winds. They called it a butterfly span roof, in case you ever want to build a roof. And I built a roof on it like that because it's strong enough for I could let it stick out over the side of the house 4 feet. I had a 4-foot distance between the edge of the roof into the house. Well, in the south, that's wonderful because that shades the wall a lot and makes it so it don't cost as much to cool down your house. And on one end, I had the fancy, almost all windows where it's looking out. But anyway, I let my milking buddy live there. And of course, by then he had a couple of little kids running around. I did, so it was really nice. Well, I was in working on the well. I was digging my own well. And you can dig a well down there because it's sandy, a lot of sand. That's you just, what I did, I just got and dug a hole and kept digging down and throwing the dirt out. And when I got so that I had to find somebody with a bucket and a rope to pull the dirt up, which my wife did. bless her soul. Anyway, I went down about 20, 30 feet. Boy, I got a good well, a lot of good water. And so, of course, I had to, I built a little shed over it and all that, and had a crank in there that you could lower buckets and crank a bucket of water up. And I had it that way until I could get the power there to put a motor on it, a pump. And so well, getting back to the story, I was just thinking about something else, I guess, not this old. Okay, what I did, well, about that time too, I had the power company come out and put a pole in and run the power line out to that other little road where it went on the power line. And so I was able to put all the lights and plugs in the house and use electricity. And so I just about had her made when my brother left, because Brown and Root called him, and it got back to that same old story that you just can't put or let go a job if it's offered to you where you can make 6, 7 times more money, even more than that, working construction.
Right.
And so I quit Egglin again and headed north. I think that's the first time I worked construction with my brother on a power station in Waco, Texas. I told you about that, I think, already.
Yeah.
So this, we was getting ready to go, and I asked my father-in-law if they wanted to live in the house, and of course he said yes, and they moved in. And
Yeah, I think we talked about this already.
did you?
He lost in a poker game.
Yeah. I signed the whole thing off to my father-in-law thinking that it would put on his shoulder enough responsibility that he could make something of himself.
Right.
Which he could have. Because even back then you could buy, I was only paying $16 an acre. Can you imagine that? You'd go try to buy that much land now, see how much you got to pay.
Right.
So that's then when we went to the first power station working with Brown and Root. You quit now?
Okay.
Bye-bye! We'll see you.